grows around the bloomin' heather, will you go? Oh, lassie, go. Hello chaps, Paul Curran here. That was the first verse there of Wild Mountain Time, or Will You Go, Lassie, Go. Now, I had erroneously thought that the words of that song had been written by Scotland's Robbie Burns. In fact, that's not the case. There was a song written by a contemporary of Robbie Burns who wrote a song that contains some of the phrases in that song. His name was Robert Tannahill, and he wrote the Braes of Balquhidder. He was on the earth from 1774 to 1810, so his lifetime did coincide with that of Robert Burns, who died at the age of 37, but Tannahill would have been younger than Burns. It seems that the folk revival in the early 60s was partly responsible for that song, because it was written, in fact, by a chap from Northern Ireland, Francis McPeak. He took a couple of phrases from the Tannahill song, but he was from Northern Ireland, and that song really is thought to be Scottish. It's been adopted by the Scots, covered by many a great artist, and interestingly, the son of Francis McPeak added a verse because his father had written the song for his wife, and then after her death he later remarried, so the final verse was added. The rest of the lyrics go a bit like this. It was in 1957, I should say, that Francis McPeak first recorded that for a BBC series called, I'm sorry, it's here somewhere, As We Go Out Roving or something. I can't find it. But the rest of the lyrics are these. Oh, the summertime's come, the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will build my love a bower by yon cool crystal fountain, and round it I will pile all the wild flowers of the mountain. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will range through the wilds and the deep glen, dreaming, and return with their spoils to the bower, my dear. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If my true love she'll not come, then I'll surely find another to pull wild mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I do encourage you to listen to a version by the Corries of that song. It's really uplifting. He gets the audience to join in at the end, which they do heartily, and it sounds tremendous. Robert Burns then. Well, he's remembered each January on Burns Night around the world. He came from Alloway in Ayrshire, and he's seen as a pioneer of Romanticism. He's sometimes known as the ploughman poet. He was also a tax collector. And an article that I read in the newspaper earlier this week sets out to reinforce this idea that perhaps he was manic depressive, as more is being discovered about that condition. So researchers have suggested that he would variously have fits of indolence or seeking to keep himself to himself, followed by periods of great activity, collecting the taxes in the area that he was responsible for, writing a great deal, and also delivering performances of his poems, as well, of course, as a bit of hell-raising. Very fond of whiskey, and he lived quite a dissolute life, really, in that he fathered children by different women. He was on his way to Jamaica, where I think his brother already was employed, and he was going to be in charge of a sugar plantation, when his first book of poems met with some great praise from people that he says he'd never even considered would read, let alone appreciate his work. So he never made it to Jamaica, and died, as I think I said a moment ago, early at the age of 37. That was in 1796. He was born in 1759, and it's the 25th of January, his birthday, when Burns Night's celebrated around the world. Let's have one of Burns's, perhaps his apart from Auld Lang Syne, of course, perhaps his most famous poem. The image of Burns in the Scottish National Gallery by Naismith is it's a tremendous portrait, and I think that was paid for by some money that he received from the publication of his first book of poems. He quickly got his portrait done, which is just as well, really. This is A Red, Red Rose. Oh, my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I'll love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry, till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. And I'll love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. And fare thee well, my only love, fare thee well a while, and I'll come again, my love, though 'twere 10,000 mile. It's hard to put it any better than that. The title of John Steinbeck work, of Mice and Men, I think I read, it comes from a Burns poem. It might be To a Mouse. That's just come into my head now, so that's one for me to go and double check. But he was certainly responsible for the title The Catcher in the Rye, which isn't quite the words that he wrote, but Salinger turned the phrase into The Catcher in the Rye for the title of his adolescent coming-of-age book from the 50s. Someone that I came across some years ago in some really fine poems for their rhythm was Langston Hughes. Not only did Langston Hughes have a wonderful name, he was prolific throughout his life, 40-year writing career, and he was honoured accordingly by different universities, Columbia University in America. He was a black man with a difficult lineage, really, because both his maternal, his grandmothers, great-grandmothers were in fact slaves, but his great-grandfathers, I think, were white men in charge of different areas that had slavery, which of course was very much commonplace at the time of his great-grandfather's life. Langston Hughes was born in 1902 and lived until 1967, and he came from Missouri. Encouraged to get a more practical job than that of a writer, I think he set about to prove his father wrong, and he wrote a prolific amount. There's a few short poems here that I rediscovered today, and I'll share those with you now. First, though, this is a quote of Langston Hughes's, which I saw more than once when I was just doing this brief research, so perhaps it's right that I should read that first. We younger Negro artists now intend to express our individual dark-skinned selves without fear or shame. If white people are pleased, we're glad. If they aren't, it doesn't matter. We know we are beautiful, and ugly too. If coloured people are pleased, we are glad. If they are not, their displeasure doesn't matter either. We build our temples for tomorrow, as strong as we know how, and we stand on the top of the mountain, free within ourselves. He also said, I tried to write poems like the songs they sang on 7th Street, those that had the pulse beat of the people who keep on going. First, though, this is Brass Spittoons by Langston Hughes from very early on in his writing career. This was written in the late 1920s. Clean the spittoons, boy! Detroit, Chicago, Atlantic City, Palm Beach. Clean the spittoons. The steam in hotel kitchens and the smoke in hotel lobbies and the slime in hotel spittoons. Part of my life. Hey, boy, a nickel, a dime, $1, $2 a day. Hey, boy, a nickel, a dime, $1, $2. Buy shoot for the baby. House rent to pay. Gin on Saturday, church on Sunday. My God, babies and gin and church and women and Sunday all mixed up with dimes and dollars and clean spittoons and house rent to pay. Hey, boy! A bright bowl of brass is beautiful to the Lord, bright polished brass like the cymbals of King David's dancers, like the wine cups of Solomon. Hey, boy, a clean spittoon on the altar of the Lord, a clean, bright spittoon, all newly polished. Come here, boy! Also early in his career, Langston Hughes wrote this elegiac poem. It's called The Negro Speaks of Rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans. And I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. Langston Hughes also loved jazz, and he was famous for having said that the Negro is in vogue, which I think has been changed to Harlem is in vogue, because the Harlem Renaissance he was very much a part of. But he would sit and listen to this wonderful new type of music. And he said he hoped to, as I mentioned earlier, he hoped to express in his writing some of the energy that he heard when listening to the jazz. This is The Weary Blues by Langston Hughes. Droning a drowsy syncopated tune, rocking back and forth to a mellow croon, I heard a Negro play. Down on Lenox Avenue the other night by the pale, dull pallor of an old gas light, he did a lazy sway to the tune of those weary blues. With his ebony hands on each ivory key, he made that poor piano moan with melody. Oh, blues! Swaying to and fro on his rickety stool, he played that sad, ragged tune like a musical fool. Sweet blues, coming from a black man's soul. Oh, blues! In a deep song voice with a melancholy tone, I heard that Negro sing, that old piano moan. Ain't got nobody in all this world, ain't got nobody but myself. So gonna quit me frowning and put my troubles on the shelf. Thump, thump, thump went his foot on the floor. He played a few chords and he sang some more. I got the weary blues and I can't be satisfied. Got the weary blues and I can't be satisfied. I ain't happy no more and I wish that I died. And far into the night he crooned that tune. The stars went out and so did the moon. The singer stopped playing and went to bed while the weary blues echoed through his head. He slept like a rock or a man that's dead. Maya Angelou, I'm sure, be well known to many of our listeners. Again, she was prolific in her writing, and as well as writing volumes of autobiography and some fine poetry, she succeeded in fulfilling a dream of directing a feature film, and she acted, and I think she was twice nominated for a Tony Award, and she is sometimes referred to as the Black Woman's Poet Laureate. Her dates were well, she died on May the 28th, 2014, and she was born in 1928. A couple of poems from Maya Angelou. This one seems appropriate, one with which to start. Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model's size, but when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. I walk into a room, just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees, then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say it's the fire in my eyes, and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Phenomenal woman, that's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, need of my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Maya Angelou had a very difficult childhood, and she was attacked when she was a young girl, and I think some of the trauma that event had caused, she tried to express and deal with in a cathartic way in some of her poems. Perhaps the most famous example of that being I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which goes as follows. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun's rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. Well, finally today, I am about to try and do something quite technical here. Richie and Peter, you'll be impressed, I hope, because the next set of lyrics, the final set of lyrics for today, come from June 1966. I thought it might be a wise thing to do, seeing that we met with success in 1966 in the World Cup, which has just begun, of course, in Russia. Nobody would have thought that they would put in 5 against Saudi Arabia. Boom, boom. Anyway, you may recognize this. It's Paul McCartney singing, I think, at his very highest. Absolutely superb melody. And this is one of the Beatles songs that was most loved by George Martin. He says in his biography how much he liked it. And it was a response by Paul to Pet Sounds, I think, the Beach Boys album, in 1966. This is Here, There and Everywhere. First of all, I'll see if I can get the Fab Four to give us the first verse. To lead a better life, I need my love to be here. Here, making each day of the year, changing my life with a wave of her hand. Nobody can deny there's something there. There, running my hands through her hair. Both of us thinking how good it can be. Someone is speaking, but she doesn't know he's there. I want her everywhere, and if she's beside me, I know I need never care. But to love her is to need her everywhere, knowing that love is to share. Each one believing that love never dies, watching her eyes and hoping I'm always there. I want her everywhere, and if she's beside me, I know I need never care. But to love her is to need her everywhere, knowing that love is to share. Each one believing that love never dies, watching her eyes and hoping I'm always there, to be there and everywhere, here, there and everywhere. Come on, England.